A rookie is not supposed to do this. They're not supposed to figure the league out so quickly. They're not supposed to turn a team that had the second worst record in the league one year to the best record in the very next. But Larry Bird did. And guess what? The Boston Celtics made no major additions in the offseason. Kevin McHale was still in college. Robert Parrish was with the Golden State Warriors. And Dennis Johnson was with the Seattle Supersonics. A rookie turned this franchise around by himself. How did he do this? What was his secret? After this long overdue deep dive that we're going to do on his rookie season, we'll see exactly what separates Larry Bird from every other player in NBA history. To start, we must emphasize how bad the Celtics were in the 1978-79 season to truly appreciate what Larry did to this team. This was in fact the worst season that Boston ever had since the birth of the National Basketball Association. They won 29 games. They had the third worst offensive and defensive rating, and they had a simple rating system of negative 4.78. There was nothing about this team that would indicate that there was any hope for them. I mentioned earlier that there was no major offseason additions, so let's go through the moves that they made. They signed ML Carr. He would end up being an important role player for this team in the years to come, but he wasn't considered a good enough player to be a full-time starter. They traded away Bob McAdoo for picks, and they signed NBA legend Pete Maravich, who was 1 year away from retiring. So here was the starting five for the 1980 Boston Celtics. The point guard was Nate Tiny Archibald. The shooting guard was Chris Ford. The small forward was Cedric Maxwell. The power forward was Larry Bird, and the center was Dave Cowens. It should be noted that this Hall of Fame player was 1 year away from retiring. There was nothing special about their offseason that would explain why they jumped from winning 29 games to 61, except for the fact that Larry Bird was finally going to make his NBA debut after being drafted the prior year. This is the fact of the matter. He was the sole reason for Boston having one of the greatest turnaround seasons in league history. He led the Celtics to a 32-game improvement. They had the second best offensive rating, the fourth best defensive rating, and they had a simple rating system of 7.37. So the question remains, how did he improve this team so drastically? Was he putting up amazing numbers every game? I wouldn't go that far. His per game numbers were great, but it won't blow your mind. He averaged 21.3 points on 47% shooting, 10.4 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. That was the 10th highest league average in rebounds and the 16th highest in points. There were moments when he displayed his individual greatness. There were 2 games where he scored over 40 points. His season high came against the Phoenix Suns when he recorded 45 points on 59% shooting, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. There was even one game where he nearly recorded a 20-20-10 game. Against the Detroit Pistons, he had 23 points, 19 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. There were times when he dominated statistically, but for the most part, he was giving you about 20 and 10 a game, which is great, but is that the stat line that we think of when we use the phrase that a player carried a team? So what was his secret? I found the answer in a very informative article written by Court Reynolds for the Celtics blog. This is what he wrote, quote, "He only took 17.8 shots per game and stimulated ball and player movement for the league's most unselfish team with wondrous passing that harkened back to the old Celtics and Knicks dynasties. Larry's basketball smarts, hustle, and immeasurable intangibles augmented his awesome tangibles and lifted Boston from a mere 29 wins to a league best 61 in just one season." End of quote. Larry had it all figured out right from the get-go. He knew exactly what his team needed to succeed and was willing to do the work. He gave that team stability. In the prior year, Boston tried 21 different starting lineups and shipped 18 different players in and out of town. As it turns out, all you needed was to plug Larry Bird to make everyone look competent. Head coach Bill Fish described his value perfectly to Sports Illustrated that season. Quote, Larry can create off a set play, and in the context of that play, he can invent something that's never been done. End of quote. Now players were getting easy looks even while being defended perfectly by the opposition. That's right, Larry could dominate a game even without scoring in bunches. That's not just on the offensive end. We don't think of him as a defensive stopper, but he was an extremely valuable defensive player. That's what the advanced numbers say. He finished first in defensive win shares and sixth in defensive rating. In the prior year, this team was undisciplined on defense. He noticed this, so he strived to do the little things to set the standard of what needed to get done. Sometimes to be a great defensive player is about putting forth the effort, and Larry never took any plays off on both ends of the floor. There's another factor that needs to be taken into consideration. The expectations that were placed on this rookie's shoulders were massive. He was labeled as a great white hope before training camp even started. There were even white doves that were released during his first game at the Boston Garden. He was expected to turn the fortunes of the most decorated franchise around immediately. And he did exactly that. The pressure meant nothing to him. There was just something different about this player. There was no question that he deserved to win the Rookie of the Year honors, and he finished 4th in MVP voting. But would he be ready for the bright lights of the playoffs? That question was answered in the first playoff series against the Houston Rockets. They had Moses Malone, the reigning MVP winner. The Celtics swept them, and Bird gave a masterful performance in the closeout game. He had 34 points on 65% shooting, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. In the following series, they lost in 5 games to the Philadelphia 76ers. Their experience and stifling defense proved to be too much for this overachieving team. Bird played up to par with his regular season averages, but it was clear that some tweaks needed to be made to this roster. It was a disappointing end, but there was so much hope. They knew they were in good hands with this once-in-a-generation player. I believe this is the single most impressive and greatest rookie season of the modern NBA, and it will never be duplicated. Other great rookies might have had better numbers, but none of them knew what it took to win at the highest level that early, and it didn't matter who you surrounded him with. This is all part of the mystique and greatness of Larry Legend. But what about you all? Do you think this is the greatest rookie season of all time? For those lucky enough to witness this season in person, what do you remember the most about Bird's rookie year? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.